Before we dive into today's story, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end. And if this story moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Now, let's begin. If anyone had told Amara years ago that her own mother and younger sister would one day treat her like an intruder in the house she paid for, she would have laughed at the absurdity. Amara had always believed that family was sacred, that love meant sacrifice, and that being the strong one meant carrying everyone else's weight on her own back. For 5 long years, she quietly covered every rent payment, every utility bill, and even her sister's university tuition, never once asking for a thank you. "One day, they'll see how much I've done for them," she often whispered to herself late at night, convincing herself to hold on a little longer. But deep inside, she sometimes wondered if that day would ever come. Then one cold, windy evening, the truth crashed into her life like a storm. She unlocked the door after work, expecting the usual quiet house, but froze when she saw her clothes scattered across the living room floor, her books dumped in a heap, and her laptop tossed near the trash bin. Her heart thudded violently. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice barely holding together. Across the room, her sister Mara leaned against the wall with her arms crossed, wearing a smug grin. Their mother, Lydia, stood by the kitchen counter, her face unreadable, as though she were watching a movie that didn't concern her. That moment shattered something inside Amara. Yet, strangely, it also freed something. She blinked away tears and thought, "They have no idea who I really am. They have no idea what I can be without them. Why are my things on the floor?" Amara demanded, her voice shaking as she stepped into the room. Mara rolled her eyes dramatically. "Because you think you own this place," she shot back. "You're not the queen here. This isn't your palace." Amara felt her hands tremble as she glanced at Lydia, silently begging for support. "Mama," she pleaded softly, "are you seriously letting her do this?" Lydia didn't even flinch. "If you want to keep living here, stop acting like you run the house," she said, her voice cold and clipped. Amara stared at her mother as though seeing her for the first time. "I pay the rent," she cried. "I keep the lights on. I bought the last groceries. Mara hasn't paid for anything in years." Mara laughed cruelly, picking up Amara's laundry basket and hurling it into the hallway. Shirts, socks, and dresses spilled across the floor. "Go on then," she yelled. "Take your things and get out if you think you're so important." Amara's throat tightened, her pulse pounding in her ears. She bent down slowly, picked up her laptop bag, and stuffed it with the essentials. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just straightened her back and whispered, "Fine." Her voice was so soft that even Mara stopped smirking for a moment. Amara slung her bag over her shoulder, opened the front door, and stepped out into the night air. For the first time in years, the evening felt strangely light, as though an invisible weight had lifted off her chest. That night, Amara checked into a cheap hotel on the edge of town, her mind spinning like a broken record. She sat on the bed, staring at her phone for a long time before finally opening her banking app. For years, she had been paying every expense automatically: rent, electricity, water, gas, internet, groceries, and Mara's tuition, all on autopay. Her finger hovered for a moment before she pressed the screen and one by one canceled each payment. "No more," she said out loud, her voice steady this time. "If they don't want me in their lives, they don't get my support." The words felt like a spell breaking. She booked a viewing for a tiny one-bedroom apartment the next morning. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. When she moved in later that week, she unpacked her suitcase slowly, breathing in the silence of the place. The furniture was secondhand, the kitchen barely big enough for one person, and the walls were plain, but it was freedom. She sat cross-legged on the floor with a take-out box of noodles and whispered, "This is mine. This is peace." For the first time in years, there were no insults ringing in her ears, no fake smiles, no guilt trips. Just quiet. And in that quiet, Amara felt the first fragile pieces of her heart begin to mend. Back at Lydia's house, chaos quickly spread. Within a week, Amara's phone buzzed with messages. At first, they were polite. "Hi, honey. I think you forgot to pay the Wi-Fi. Can you check?" A few days later, they grew sharper. "What's wrong with you?" "The rent is overdue. We're getting warnings." By the end of the second week, Mara's university sent an email saying her classes had been frozen for non-payment. "Serves her right," Amara muttered under her breath, though she didn't feel angry, just detached. She put the phone face down and let it buzz until it stopped. Each time she didn't reply felt like another chain breaking off her soul. One evening, she sat on her tiny balcony with a mug of tea, watching the sun sink below the city skyline. The orange glow lit her face as she whispered, "Now they know what life without me feels like." It wasn't revenge. It wasn't spite. It was simply truth. But somewhere deep inside, Amara felt that this chapter wasn't finished. They had humiliated her, thrown her out, and pretended she had done nothing. Maybe it was time they saw the truth, the full, undeniable truth of what she had done for them. The next morning, Amara opened her laptop and began pulling up her records. She had always been meticulous, saving bank statements, utility receipts, and even university payment confirmations, not to use them as proof, but simply to stay organized. But now those records were power. She worked for hours, compiling every rent payment, grocery bill, electricity bill, and tuition fee into a single document. Line after line, number after number, the total climbed higher. Over $50,000 in just 3 years. When she was done, she wrote a short letter. "You wanted me gone. Now see what you've lost." She attached the expense report and sent it to both Lydia and Mara. No insults, no begging, just the cold truth. Then she closed her laptop and went about her day. By noon, her phone lit up with calls and messages. Lydia's voice on the voicemail cracked with a forced softness. "Amara, why are you doing this? We didn't ask you to pay everything." Mara's message followed, sharp and irritated. "Fine, maybe we were harsh, but you're being petty. You're not getting that money back. So what's your point?" Amara set the phone aside and let out a small, almost sad smile. "They still don't get it," she murmured. 2 weeks later, Amara's phone rang with an unknown number. She hesitated, but answered. A warm, familiar voice came through. "Hi, this is Sonia, your old neighbor. I thought you'd want to see this." Moments later, a photo popped up on her phone. The house she once paid for, now with a bold red final notice plastered on the door. Beneath it, Sonia had typed, "Looks like the golden goose finally stopped laying eggs." Amara stared at the photo for a long moment, her breath caught in her throat. The rent was overdue. The electricity had been shut off. Mara had been dropped from university entirely. For once, they had no one left to blame. She sat back in her chair, whispering, "So this is what happens when silence speaks." But she didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel bitter. She simply felt free. That night, she lit a candle in her small kitchen, sat down with her journal, and wrote one line. "I will never go back to that house again." Amara thought her story would end quietly there, but the world had other plans. A few nights later, she typed up her entire experience on a personal finance forum, leaving out names but including every fact, how she had supported her family for years, how she was thrown out, and how she finally walked away. She pressed post and leaned back, expecting maybe a handful of comments. By morning, her thread had exploded with hundreds of replies. Strangers flooded her inbox. "You're an inspiration. I needed this courage. I'm walking away from my toxic family today." Someone even commented, "This sounds like that spoiled girl from my college who suddenly dropped out." Her name was Mara too. Screenshots spread across social media. By the end of the week, Amara's story had gone viral. She read each comment with wide, misty eyes, whispering, "For once, someone sees me." Then came an email that made her stomach twist. The subject line read, "Let's talk, Mom." Her hands shook as she clicked it open. Lydia's message was short. "We saw your post. We didn't realize how much you were doing. Mara feels awful. Can we please meet? Just one coffee. No pressure." Amara closed the laptop and sat in silence. Part of her wanted to delete the email and never look back. But another part of her, the part that had stayed silent for 5 years, wanted to face them and say what she had never been allowed to say. The next morning, she replied with 3 words. 30 minutes. Public place. She chose a quiet cafe downtown where she knew the staff and felt safe. On the day of the meeting, they arrived late, as usual. Lydia's hair was perfectly styled, her lipstick too bright, her smile too rehearsed. Mara looked thinner, her once confident eyes shadowed with stress. They slid into the booth across from Amara. "Amara, we're sorry," Lydia began softly, her tone syrupy. "We know we hurt you." Mara reached for her hand, but Amara pulled back. "I wasn't thinking straight," Mara said, her voice trembling. "I was stressed with school. I didn't mean to throw your stuff out." For a moment, it almost sounded sincere, but then Lydia pulled a manila folder from her purse and slid it across the table. "Since you're doing well now, we were hoping you could co-sign a small loan for us, just until we get back on our feet." Amara's chest went cold. So that was it. The apology wasn't about love or regret. It was bait. She leaned back slowly, crossing her arms. "No," Lydia blinked, confused. "What do you mean, no?" Amara's voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut the air. "I'm not doing this again." Mara slammed her palm on the table, rattling the cups. "Are you seriously going to let your family suffer while you play victim online?" Amara stood, grabbing her purse. Her eyes locked on them. "You threw me out. You called me useless. You don't get to treat someone like trash and then ask them to save you." She pulled out her phone and tapped it. "And by the way," she added, her voice steady, "I recorded this conversation." Mara's face went pale. "You can't do that." Amara slipped the phone back into her bag. "Actually, I can. We live in a one-party consent state. Look it up." With that, she turned and walked out, leaving them frozen in the booth. That night, she uploaded a new video to her growing online channel. She titled it, "They apologized, but here's what they really wanted." In the video, she calmly explained the meeting, their request for a loan, and her refusal. She didn't play the recording. She didn't have to. Her words were enough. Within days, the video hit 1 million views. The comments section was flooded. "You did the right thing. Boundaries are love. Thank you for showing us it's okay to say no." A month later, an unexpected email arrived from a local legal clinic. A paralegal had seen her video and wanted to help her review whether she had legal grounds to recover the money she had spent on Mara's tuition and the household bills. Amara felt her pulse quicken. "Recover the money," she whispered. "I thought that was gone forever." She gathered every receipt, every bank statement, and met with the lawyer the following week. "You have a strong case," he said after reviewing the documents. "You may not get the full amount, but you absolutely have a valid claim." Amara filed the case, not knowing if they'd even show up to court. But on the hearing day, both Lydia and Mara were there, sitting stiffly at the defendant's table. Amara entered with her folder, her steps steady. She let the paper trail speak. Every payment, every email, every transfer. The judge glanced at Mara and shook his head. Throwing someone out while expecting them to keep paying your bills is not how family works. Mara's face crumpled. Lydia's lips pressed into a thin line. When the ruling came, Amara didn't cry. The judge ordered Mara to repay $12,000 in monthly wage garnishments. It wasn't the full $50,000, but it was justice. Real legal justice. Outside the courthouse, Lydia tried one last time. You really wanted to humiliate us like this? Amara turned to her, her voice calm, her eyes clear. No, I wanted you to see me, but now I just want peace. She walked away, not once looking back. That night, she sat in her apartment, her laptop open as messages poured in from supporters around the world. Sponsorship offers arrived. Podcasts invited her to speak. A women's nonprofit asked her to lead a workshop on financial independence. Amara pressed her hand over her heart and smiled through tears. I guess the girl they threw away finally has a voice, she whispered. Later that evening, she stepped out onto her balcony, the city glowing beneath her, rain-washed and alive. She breathed deeply, letting the cool air fill her lungs. I'm not surviving anymore, she said softly to the night. I'm living. And with that, Amara's story was no longer about loss. It was about freedom. The weeks after the court ruling brought a strange kind of peace into Amara's life. She no longer woke up with her stomach in knots, dreading the next explosion at home. Instead, she woke early, brewed her own coffee in the little kitchen she had decorated with soft curtains and secondhand mugs, and sat by the window to watch the sunrise. Her channel, New Horizons, passed 1 million subscribers, each video drawing more comments than the last. People wrote to her from all over the world. I finally walked away because of you. You reminded me that I'm not a doormat. You saved me. Amara read every message, tears stinging her eyes. Maybe this is why it all happened, she whispered, setting up her tripod for a new video. Invitations began to roll in. A budgeting app asked for a collaboration, a women's empowerment podcast invited her for an interview, and a nonprofit requested she teach a workshop about financial boundaries. Amara smiled, almost laughing at the irony. The girl they called ungrateful is now teaching others how to say no, she murmured. One rainy Thursday morning, as she prepared for a live stream Q&A, an email notification popped up on her screen. The subject line made her freeze, loan application alert. Her breath hitched. When she opened it, her stomach dropped. Someone had tried to apply for a student loan using her social security number and an old photo ID. Within seconds, her phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. Hi, a nervous woman's voice said. My name is Rena. I used to date Mara's ex. I overheard her talking. She was bragging about trying to get money under your name, but the application got flagged. Amara closed her eyes and gripped the edge of her desk. She hasn't changed, she whispered. That afternoon, she froze her credit, filed a report with the FTC, and called the police. For hours, she sat at her desk, staring at the rain-streaked window, her tea going cold. This isn't about revenge anymore, she said softly. This is about protecting myself from people who'll never respect my boundaries. A week later, the detective called with an update. We have enough evidence, he said. Your sister will be charged with attempted identity theft. It's a low-level felony, but it's serious. Amara thanked him, hung up, and sat very still. She didn't feel joy, didn't feel anger. She just felt the air go still around her, as if the last piece of the past had finally snapped away. That night, she stood on her balcony with a mug of coffee, letting the cool air wash over her. Down below, the city glowed softly after the rain. For the first time, she didn't think about Lydia or Mara or what they might be saying about her. She just breathed deeply and whispered, I'm not surviving anymore. I'm living. The following weekend, Amara recorded her most vulnerable video yet. She sat in front of her camera, no makeup, her hair tied back, the light soft and natural. This is not about revenge, she began. This is about learning that love without respect will drain you dry. This is about boundaries. And this is about how sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself. She spoke for nearly an hour, telling her audience about the fraud attempt, about filing reports, about choosing to protect her peace no matter the cost. When she hit upload, she felt lighter than she had in years. Within days, the video became her most watched ever. Thousands of comments poured in, praising her courage. "You saved me tonight. I reported my brother after watching this. I finally told my mom no." Amara smiled through tears as she scrolled. Her pain had become a lighthouse for others. Months passed, and life felt entirely new. Amara's apartment blossomed into a reflection of her spirit. A bright rug in the living room, shelves stacked with books she loved, a cozy chair by the window where she filmed her videos. She saved more money than ever, took on consulting work with a local college, and spoke at 2 women's empowerment panels. The girl who once begged for her family's approval was gone. One quiet evening, she poured herself a glass of wine, sat on her balcony, and watched the skyline shimmer in the distance. "I thought losing them would break me," she whispered into the night, "but it built me." She raised the glass in a silent toast to herself, to the life she had built, and to the freedom she had fought so hard to find. Amara didn't just survive, she thrived. And for the first time, she belonged completely to herself. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.